Good evening everybody here at the hall. My name is Sanna Marin. I'm the former Prime Minister of Finland and currently serving board member of YES. The next topic, the next discussion will be drones and the future of warfare in Ukraine, or when we look just this week's events, maybe we should say warfare in Europe. Just this week, as we have been discussing yesterday and today, there were 19 drones attacking Polish airspace. It was taken down by Polish and some European countries' fighter jets. Quite expensive way of destroying quite cheap comparison equipment. So we need to ask ourselves, is Europe ready for this future or actually today's warfare? What should we do together? Where is Ukraine and what should we learn from Ukraine? My co-moderator is Nataliya Gumeniuk, CEO of Public Interest Journalism Lab and currently writing a book on the subject at hand. I will hand it to you, Nataliya.
So, I'll introduce the brilliant panelists who will give us the whole broad understanding of the theme, and that would be Lieutenant Colonel Shamil Krutkov, who is a commander of the legendary 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, which is called Holodny Yar in Ukrainian, and then we hold Major General Christian Freuding, who is a German federal minister from the German Federal Ministry of Defense, and also Andrius Kubilius, who today is a Commissioner for Defense and Space at European Commission. Oleksandr Kamyshin today is an advisor to the President at the Office of the President of Ukraine. And Sven Kruck is a CEO of the Quantum Systems, an innovative company working for some time in Ukraine in the field. So the panel is named The Drones and the Future of the Warfare, but I want really to say for anybody who goes to the front line, more or less like regularly, you understand that the future is not really somewhere. It's literally somewhere on the east or in the south in the battlefield, because you come, in March, but then the ground-based robotic complexes looks like a future. You return, and this is a norm, and it's already well developed, and it's happening with incredible speed. So I want first the Lieutenant Colonel Krutkov really to lay the ground and describe this future we are living in particular. And I want to give a couple of examples, because I had a privilege to be with one of the FPV pilots in the trenches somewhere close to Toretsk from 93rd Brigade, and observe in live how with 6 FPVs, each of them cost around $350, which is together make $2,000 a bit more. The tank was destroyed, which cost $1 million. And it's happening all the time, but for me it was very enlightening to see that within, just live. Yet that was then, but what also is striking, we're speaking about the drones often as some new invention, sometimes as a magic wand, sometimes as something which may substitute reconnaissance, which may substitute artillery, which may substitute this or that. But now it's not like special drone unit. Everybody fights with drone, and the 93rd is a very classical, legendary mechanic brigade. But wherever you go, whether this artillery, whether anything, you fight with the drones. So what really has changed? Where is this future? How the drone warfare looks today that, in fact, quite a lot of people don't know.
Всім доброго дня. Дякую за запрошення і дякую за можливість виступити з такою важливою промовою. Дрони сьогодні – це основний елемент бойового порядку виконання завдань підрозділами в ході ведення бойових дій. Сьогодні дрони, вони перш за все бережуть життя людей, наших солдатів, які виконують найскладнішу функцію, особливо солдатів-піхотинців. Та допомагають зупиняти противника, наносити йому втрат і в подальшому змушувати його відмовлятися від виконання своїх наступальних та загарбницьких дій з метою просування на нашу територію. Що стосується, правильно було відзначено, що ми все-таки механізована бригада. В класичному плані механізована бригада – це, якщо брати там раніше, або це, як воно структурно має виглядати, це 3 механізованих батальйона з великою кількістю бойових броньованих машин, також з танками, артилерійськими засобами і так далі. Але сьогоднішня механізована бригада не може вести бойові дії без підтримки дронами, зокрема розвідувальними, гексакоптерами, FPV, наземні роботизовані комплекси та решта засобів, які допомагають зупиняти противника. Наша бригада є однією з найрозвинутіших в Збройних силах по застосуванню безпілотних систем, зокрема як БПЛА, так і наземних роботизованих комплексів. Безпілотні літальні апарати використовуються з метою своєчасного виявлення противника типу квадрокоптер, розвідувального типу. Ударні FPV та гексакоптери призначені для знищення та нанесення втрат противнику безпосередньо. Також дрони використовуються, зокрема, для логістичного забезпечення з метою того, аби знову ж таки берегти особовий склад. Як це працює, пояснюю. Замість того, щоб, умовно кажучи, солдат йшов і виконував ті чи інші логістичні завдання, більшість з них на полі бою сьогодні використовуються дронами, як повітряними, так і гексакоптерами. Також новітність сьогодні – це наземні роботизовані системи. Зокрема, вже і ми вперше недавно застосували саме ударні місії наземного роботизованого комплексу. Зокрема, і застосовували їх на різних ділянках місцевості.
So the channel changed to number 1, I noticed.
Зокрема, не так давно зупиняли Добропільський прорив, так званий, всі про це бачили в інтернеті. Це все було в першу чергу виконано, точніше, одним з основних елементів виконання даного заходу було застосування безпілотних систем. Зокрема, як повітряного компоненту, так і наземного роботизованого. Безпілотні системи сьогодні можуть не заставити, навіть правильно сказати, за допомогою безпілотних систем можна прийти до цього, що героїзм піхотинця стане менш вимушеним, і ми зможемо завдяки безпілотним системам більше берегти людей і знищувати противника. Хотів би подякувати всім тим, хто допомагає нашій бригаді на технічному розвитку саме. Оце основа виконання завдань сьогодні. Дякую.
Thank you so much. When the war started, we thought that the best way to destroy a tank was with another tank that cost over $10 million, and now we know that drones are the ones that are doing the work. Drones in Ukraine are responsible for 90% of Russian vehicles that Ukrainians have destroyed, and 80% of Russian soldiers killed. So there has been a dramatic change just within these years. And I want to ask you, Sven, how do you see, first of all, what are you providing, and how do you see that this has evolved, and what are you also learning from Ukraine? What is the future of drones?
Thanks, Anna. Yes, what we are providing as Quantum Systems, we are providing ISR capabilities in there, so mid-range reconnaissance drone with a vector as a type of a drone. And we are also providing these drones to all these brigades here at the battlefront since 2022. I think the first thing is really when we talk about the future of drones that we have to understand that we have really a capability gap of drones to close. And I think Ukrainians are hard working on these topics, and also European armed forces are working on this topic, but it's still not there yet that every understanding and the mindset is arrived there. That depends on how we are spending the money here in Ukraine for these troops, and how also European armed forces are supporting here the troops on the ground. What have we learned and what have we seen? I mean, it's all about time, scale, and quality. So what we learned, that it's always urgent. Time is key. So we always had to provide our systems as fast as possible. In the same manner, we had to scale our production. We have now 240 people here on the ground, and when we started this project with the German Armed Forces together in the west of Kyiv, I started with 1-2 people to support on the ground. And I think that's key, that we also had to adapt how we act as a Western company and how we can really be with the troops on the ground. So it's time and scaling. And the third point I want to point out is that quality is always still an issue, and it's not only scaling. I mean, if we talk about the future of drones, we're talking about automation. We're talking about using the efficiency of costs, the efficiency of human capital, and the efficiency of effectiveness. And this we can only achieve if we are really focusing also on the quality matters, and these are in combination with automation. And if you don't have brain power, for example, on board, on drones at the air, in the land, in the sea, with NVIDIA chips, and to then play the game of AI and software, you are lost. So don't forget that these elements are needed. And yes, we also learned that bringing also in the same energy like the troops on the ground at the battlefront are dealing with every day is crucial. And we're doing our best also 24 hours, 7 days a week to supply as best as we can.
My question would be to Oleksandr. When you look at the journalists like the numbers, so often you asked about how many drones Ukraine can produce, how many we need. But when you talk to any commander, military, they have very different approach. We really speak that Ukraine is very innovative, and there are hundreds of the types of drones. There are dozens of the companies. Some are small, some are big, and what Russia is good is in scaling. And we have this innovation, but it's still a challenge. It's always not enough. What is really the strategy? How do we scale? How do we choose what is good to scale? How are we capable to do that? So that we kind of scale the best ones, and we still, winning in the drone warfare. What is the strategy? What it should be?
Thanks, Natalia. I will start with the memory from 2022. On 30th of March, I've been with my team in Trastinets, near Sumy. That was only 2 days after 93rd Brigade took Russians out of the city. I've been at the central square, and I've seen a number of machinery broken. And those machinery was broken not with the drones, but with other machinery on the fight on the battlefield. Now, less than 5% of tanks damaged in the battle arrived to the factories where we repair them. And those damages come from other machinery. 95% comes from drones. That's where we are at this point. So the future is already here. Second point would be about Ukrainian innovation that actually rethinked the conventional warfare. At this point, no one is doing recon without drones. Drones are inevitable, significant part of the reconnaissance. Mortar mines are almost fully replaced with mortar drones. That's FPV drones. Same range, same capability, and at this point they are quite in a parity. Still not in the parity artillery, where we got artillery drones. Even longer than artillery range, almost same capability. We got missiles and we got missile drones. Even air defense. We got air defense drones now. 2 weeks ago we got one night when we hit 76 Shahids with drone interceptors in one night. Yes, it's still much lower than we received, but it's already almost 100 of Shahids taken by drone interceptors. So finally, drones take their place in every conventional warfare segment. I've got two questions to the room. The first question would be, could you please raise your hands, those of you who have ever been at drone production factory? Commissioner Kubilius, you can raise 5 hands, 6 hands, if you could. So my second question would be to those in the room who didn't raise your hand. Who are you? Where you come from? What's wrong with you? You are in Ukraine and you haven't been to drone production facility. Really? Since this YES conference, we got a strategic partnership with YES, Ukrainian defense industry, and YES, we offer a limited experience to those of you coming from outside to see training facilities for drones in Ukraine, to see some production facilities and meet companies producing all types of defense industry in Ukraine. So for the next YES conferences, please apply early and state what would you like to see. Maybe you would be not raising your hand next time. So actually, speaking about the strategy, what we have in the defense industry, I would tell that at this point, we are not lagging behind Russia in terms of scaling. We are ready to match them in every segment of drones, from mortar drones, FPV drones, to deep strikes. The point is how we fuel the capacities we already have. For this year, we got contracts only for 1/3 of capacities we have in Ukraine. And that's quite painful, because those companies which you met, I'm sure that every company said that we would be happy to get some extra contracts. And we're not speaking about the contracts for 3 years, like European defense industry, for 5 years. We would be so happy to get at least 1-year contract. So at this point, we are ready to scale up. We are ready to match Russians. But the point is how we fund it, how we fuel it.
Thank you so much. That deserves an applause. The next question will go to you, Andrius. As a commissioner for space and defense, I must say, first of all, I really appreciate your take on the task in the Commission, and I have been also privileged to hear you many times before. And I really appreciate your very pragmatic and realistic and not pessimistic view what is going on in Europe. So I want to ask you, is Europe ready? And of course, there's an answer within the question, we're not ready. But what we need to do? What needs to be done to make sure that Europe will be ready, this not future, but actually ongoing warfare? What is happening in different countries in Europe? Where is the money going and where it should go? And what are you doing in Commission, pushing the member states forward to make sure that there will be capabilities that we actually already need?
Well, thanks a lot. Really pleasure to be again here. And very briefly, to try to answer to your very significant question, I think that, this Putin exercise testing our capabilities in Poland, is opening a lot of understanding where we are. So from one side, NATO and Poland reacted in a very, brave and very, very quick way, raising their air fighters, killing several drones, but we know what does it mean, with the missiles, which cost, whatever, hundreds of thousands and so on. And that shows that really our capabilities to fight the war against drones is, at the moment, really quite limited. That is what we need to understand. That was what we were speaking before. Even in my country, when one drone came in, in Lithuania, our militaries were not able to follow where he is flying. At the end, after a few days, we found that drone with 2 kilos of ammunition directly in the center of our military camp. So Russians brought that drone, into military camp, just to show us, what kind of problems we have. So really, that's what we need to recognize. Second, what we need to recognize, and what Oleksandr was saying, I'm always hear from Ukrainians, and really Ukrainians are brilliant in drones, in development of new technologies, the whole ecosystem around. It's amazing what Ukrainians manage to do. But I hear from Ukrainians when they are saying that Russians are as good in drones as Ukrainians and in electronic warfare. What does it mean? It means that, if the predictions, for example, of German intelligence service, that Putin can be ready to test Article 5 in 3 or 4 years' time, whatever, in Poland, in Baltic states, or in Finland even, we shall face battle-tested Russian army, which is stronger than it was back in 2022, and which is able to use, millions of drones. And here is, systemic question, are we ready for that? And I see, the answer from the audience. Perhaps we need to answer ourselves, no, for the time being, we are not ready. So that is, it brings two questions to us. What we need to do, and second, how we can bring all the Ukrainian knowledge, experience, know-how, building our capacities which we need to build. And that is why, quite recently, with Commission President, we traveled all the frontline countries, Finland, Baltic states, Poland, then Romania, Bulgaria, and we understood really the need, what member states were asking, to build as defense project of common European interest, so-called Eastern Shield, which would have two components. One is traditional, classical, anti-mobility, instruments, which again Ukrainians know very well how to build those structures, Dragon Ts and so on. But second is really to build what we call drone wall, and here to build that together with Ukraine. Ukrainians really are offering a lot of advice how we can do that all together, and to do that as some kind of regional project which would be supported by European funds. Now, for example, safe loans are coming into reality. That can be used also. But that is a must what we need to do. I see also that some industries from Germany, for example, are saying that to build such a defensive against drone attacks wall, it can take less than 1 year. So let's do that. Let's do that. Let's do it together with Ukraine. And that is why, Commission President spoke about that in her State of the Union address. Commission President also announced that 6 billion euros will be front-loaded to Ukraine for so-called drone alliance. So that is what we shall do. But again, I will repeat at least my knowledge from visiting, whatever times, drone factories and drone operators and looking into the whole picture. We in Europe need to understand that producing drones is only part of the task which we need to do. Because what I call ecosystem around drones, what Ukrainians created, when operators are working together with those who are producing, when all the information from front line is computerized, statistics is clear, which drones are working, which are not working anymore because Russians are able to jam, where, production, procurement system is totally different from what we have. If we should, try to procure drones in Europe, it will take perhaps, 1 year or 2 years, That is what Ukrainians understood from the very beginning and changed that approach very radically, and that is what I call it, ecosystem. So we need to go into that. We need to be very practical, and I see really, first of all, what we need to do. We need to create a system which would allow us to see the drones. And that is, again, what experts are saying, it's the question of acoustic sensors, which we need to build the whole system along the border, in order to, I don't know how to say, to see or to hear drones in order really to be able to follow And then, of course, all those instruments which Ukrainians are so good in using, like interceptors, like electronic warfare against drones, and like, I don't know, classical machine gun on Toyota Jeep, is also very important to do.
Can I ask a very short follow-up? I think everybody in this room agrees with you. We need to do this, and we need to do it fast. But where are we? Where are different European countries as we speak? Where is Germany? Where is French? Where is Italy? Where is the Nordics? Are we there? So what is, from the Commission's perspective, what is the real situation now? Where are we? Are we even close, or are we even gaining?
Well, now we are looking into some kind of regional approach. So all the regional frontier countries are very much in. And they are asking us to help, to coordinate, to look for financial means how we can do that. And we are ready to engage full speed. And I hope that very soon some news will come. Other countries have good production, which...
Do you want to share the news?
Sorry?
What are the news? What are coming?
No.
And when?
Coming nice, how to say. Well, I think that first of all, this drone wall is becoming a real idea which we shall together with member states we shall try to implement. As I said, here speed can be quite quick. Second, what is coming Council of Heads of States, where Commission will need to present so-called roadmap for defense readiness. What are we going to do till 2030? How we shall build that defense readiness? So one of the points, I think, will be exactly about this drone wall as a regional project, as a project of common European interest, and that is will allow us to move ahead.
I, in some way, reiterate the question in a different way, but more or less the same to Major General Freuding. And, of course, it's maybe not the best idea always to repeat the same story about the Polish, the incursion into Poland with the Russian drones, but anticipating Oleksandr's advice to go to the drones production, I had a chance to be in one yesterday. And it was very practical. We've seen the interceptors, exactly the ones which are capable to intercept Herberas, the drones which attacked Poland. An interceptor cost $1,000. The Russian drone cost $15,000. And yet they were shut down by the F-35, with the missiles which cost roughly $3 million. And the difference is quite crucial. And of course, it was a successful operation by Poland, by the allies. And I want really to see your understanding how this is evolving, how the defense is evolving in Germany, in Europe, in this particular context. And I also don't want to underestimate the artillery, the tanks, everything else. Lieutenant Colonel Krutkov said, everything matters. So it's not about the drones substituting something. It's working together. How are you changing? Because also, add on top of that, when I speak today to some of the commanders, we asking what is the strongest army globally, they often answer China because it has a lot of cheap production. They do things which are cheap, maybe not that good, but with a lot of money. So how are you thinking about those challenges and what is happening from the military perspective?
Okay, thank you very much for having me in this very interesting panel. I think you opened even more the scope of the question, which is, are we seeing the future of warfare? And I can tell you, I have seen drone production in Germany, I've seen German drone production in Ukraine, and I've seen and I admire drone production in Ukraine, where we, Oleksandr and me, visited several times different production sites. When we are talking about future of warfare, and you are asking a military leader, he will always give you the answer. While talking about the future of warfare, it's talking about crystal balling, and military leaders don't like crystal balling. But what we do like is giving a thorough analysis. And giving a thorough analysis, I'm looking at the Ukrainian battlefield, and what we are seeing there is Ukrainian forces fighting heroically, I said again, heroically, against an enemy which by all means has a superiority in numbers, undoubtful, and therefore Ukrainians decided, went the way to go into asymmetry to win this war against a conventional enemy who is superior in numbers. How did our Ukrainian friends, if you allow me, achieve this asymmetry? They have chosen asymmetry in means, which means unmanned systems. They have chosen asymmetry in costs, as you mentioned already, and asymmetry of tactics. If you look into the history of warfare, if you're studying the history of warfare, we see always that one asymmetry creates the other one. And that is why innovation cycles, especially in Ukraine, are currently as fast as they are. But history also teaches us that innovations can change the character of war, but will not change what war is about. And I think we have always to keep that in mind as well. Because war means that one party enforces its will to the other party with the means of violence, which means what will promise military success between two specific warring parties in a very specific historic situation. So, for example, you can see that tanks and planes entered the battlefield and they changed the character of war, but still planes only and tanks only are useless, and I think the same is true for drones as well. And I would like at this point to add a further perspective. Changes of military capabilities and tactics have always been a part of changes in societies as well. So if you think back, for example, to the 18th century, when European armies invented the tirailleur tactics, which means that it doesn't work anymore, that infantry was massing against developing artillery, but tirailleur tactics means that small groups of infantry soldiers were to accomplish their mission on their own, in their own responsibility. And that was a sign of societal change, and I think we can see a similar move now, a similar development now, as today we have today's technological progress, especially unmanned things, artificial intelligence, influence the way of how we live, how we interact, and of course the way we fight. So from a military perspective, what I take from the current battlefield is the following. There are some guiding principles of war, but they have to be revisited. And I will give you one example. We have the old rules that fire supports maneuver. Shouldn't we think in the future, how can maneuver support fire? And how can we develop technique, tactics, force composition, training, and mindset to find a new balance between fire and maneuver, for this very specific example, on a very transparent battlefield we see today, in order to survive, in order to succeed, and in order to win.
Can I follow up on that? Germany is now using a lot of money, investing a lot in defense. How do you see, is the money flowing to the right direction, or is it still going the very traditional capabilities? Is the money going where it should go?
Well, we should talk about this in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time. What we are currently need, especially in Germany, and this is a specific German question, we have to fill what we are missing since years. We have to fill our units and formations with systems we provided to our Ukrainian friends. We have to fill our formation units with with systems we are lacking since years or even decades. And of course we have to invest much more into new technology, much more into unmanned systems. And I think what is really a challenge for military decision makers for the years to come is to hit the right balance between what we call legacy systems and between new technology. And that will be the challenge, and we will work very hard on that. And we are very grateful that we can build on the experience our Ukrainian friends made during the last years to have the right balance for the war of the future, whatever this will be.
What would be the right balance now?
What would be the right balance? Well, I think I can't say this for the very moment. We have to analyze the experience from the Ukrainian battlefield. We have to test much more. I think it is very difficult what we have to be very much more open in our military environment. That we are going to test the composition of forces, unmanned systems, long-range fires, manned systems, which is really a composition of force that is survivable, a composition of force which can be managed by modern C4I star systems, and a composition of force which wins at the very end. And we need the courage to test and fail and test and fail again, and then very quickly get the right balance of different systems, of different capabilities, and then scaling up.
My question isn't to Sven, and I think it also for the rest. It's about the value for money, because I think we're here not to really criticize, and I haven't seen many people in the front line who criticize the Western weapon. It can be very precise, it can be very good, but it's very expensive and it's not there. So the whole development of the drone production is partially driven, yes, sometimes the drones are precise and better, but sometimes it's a Ukrainian answer for the questions we have been asking in this room for many years. How much Europe and the West can pay for Ukrainian war? So Ukrainians found the way which is cheaper, saying, no, it's not about trillions. It's not even about the dozen of billions. Few millions sometimes for a brigade per year can be a game changer. Do we understand that there is a cheaper labor force? It's maybe cheaper to produce it here. But how we can change the balance? How the companies like yours can work and cooperate? What is the model? Is it the model of the investment? Is it the model of cooperation? Somebody's buying Ukrainian companies, then we think, oh, maybe it's again will become very expensive. And where we are, or maybe it's already too late to speak about the production of FPVs or heavy bombers, and we need to speak about AI because it's already too late and we need to be a few steps ahead. So how this cooperation should work in terms of value for money?
I think this cooperation it's never too late to start with it. I mean, we started 3 years ago, but I think I can only talk to every company here in the room to do so, and also investing in software and AI elements like you mentioned. I think we can, what we did, we are cooperating with Ukrainian companies. We invested also in some companies here on the ground. And what we are doing now is we are trying to get everything out of this environment in terms of economy, in terms of learning, in terms of techniques, in terms of what we can establish here. Actually, we opened a software AI, a center for quantum systems here in the middle of the city, where we are really lean on the personnel which is here around, and this is what we can get out of here. But on the other way around, we have now invested here. Now we also want to bring Ukrainian companies to Germany and to Europe to learn and to bring, at the end, unmanned systems to the German armed forces as best as we can, because we have some capability gaps. We're still using DJI drones in our armed forces, so I think we also have to work on this. And that's why we try our best as Quantum to bring also Ukrainian companies to Germany, and then to scale our production facilities with their products, and this is the way we are going forward.
Sanna, I know you have quite a lot of questions about AI in particular, and we are coming to this topic which is very trendy. But before that, I'd like to say I was pretty much stunned when I talked to one of the also Ukrainian commanders, more or less about the challenges, what Ukraine is bringing to this war, what is new. And the answer was not about the innovation. He said that we actually would like with our partners to set the rules for the civilized world for the use of the drones. So the drones are not, like we don't think about them that all the Malay actors would use it. And for instance, he was given an example that there should be the system when, in the end, operator decides the final decision when AI is used, that the final decision is by the operator rather by those inhuman model like in Russia and China, which just give the machine to decide whom to kill. So there is loads of questions about that, and I think they are very fundamental for our understanding of the future of warfare you have.
Well, I think the warfare will look very different a year from now already. I think the pace will only exceed. And I think we will also hear much more about this in the next discussion with Eric Smith. But I would like to ask you, Andrius, is Europe also now prepared, separate from the cooperation with US, to facing the future aggression of Russia? Because we also know that Russia is not only gazing on Ukraine, but also much larger scope on Europe. Are we prepared to defend ourselves without the help of US? Of course, we don't wish it. We want strong transatlantic cooperation also in the future. But can we anymore trust that there will be, that it will be there in all scenarios? So are we ready, really, by ourselves, or are we still too dependent and too trusty that the US will come to our aid and we are not investing heavily enough by our own capabilities?
Well, are we ready? So the question is when we shall be ready, maybe. So I would say from the very beginning, when I was, given this task to be Commissioner on Defense, I said that we have two challenges. One is even not challenge but threat, that Putin can decide to start aggression against European Union or NATO member states during the next 3 or 4 years, what our intelligence services are saying. And second, I was saying that we need to understand that Americans have some rationality when they are saying, well, you Europeans should take care about your own security and defense, because we need to switch more and more towards Indo-Pacific and to mitigate Chinese military power. So that's what we need to understand as new reality. It's not, that Americans, we should not complain that Americans will not love us anymore, and so on, but simply this division, geopolitical division of responsibilities perhaps is coming. So what we need really to have, perhaps some kind of very practical and rational agreement with Americans, how they imagine their, shifting of their resources from European continent towards Indo-Pacific, and from another side, what we need to be, ready to replace in a first order, and simply not to leave some kind of empty area, without our capabilities. That is why we are discussing and we are planning, especially to invest a lot into so-called development of strategic enablers, for example, in space, where we are, for time being, quite heavily dependent on American services. So that's one thing. But so you asked, are we ready? I said, well, we are on a good track to be ready. But also here is one condition. All of us, we wish peace in Ukraine as soon as possible. Better before Christmas, for example. If that would be able to be achieved, for time being, I do not see that Putin will sign anything. But what we need to be ready Ukrainians are preparing themselves to live after the war and, how to go for reconstruction and so on. I'm not so sure that we are ready, when peace will come, to continue our defense readiness building. I am afraid that, if peace will come, we Europeans will say, okay, there is a peace, and we can relax, we can stop our investment into defense. When Putin will continue with his war economy, producing everything what he is producing now, and that could be a big issue, big challenge for us. So that's why I would say that this, our preparedness, our readiness, need to be, very much, put into as a basis of our future policies. And that is where, again and again, I'm repeating, our partnership with Ukraine is crucial, also in developing all those, new capabilities which Ukrainians managed to establish on the front line, which are very much needed for new warfare doctrines, and where really, we could expect to become much stronger if we shall continue with Ukraine in whatever, whatever technological changes will come. Because sometimes I'm asking, I don't know, maybe Oleksandr can give an answer to my question. When I see how Ukrainians are improving their capabilities in, in intercepting drones, with, drone interceptors, I'm asking myself the question. So, when interceptors of drones will become so good that to use drones will not be anymore, very, very, how to say, effective. So what will be next? What will come, to what we need to be ready?
While Oleksandr is thinking, and I know a lot would be addressed in the next discussion about that, I kind of know about that, so I want, and it's partially my task, to bring us back to the real future, because you cannot jump into the future. There are steps you're going. So I want to, again, to return to Commander Krutkov, just to really explain what really is necessary so we go this path, that we reach this future with the less losses. Because I'm not kind of saying that we're presenting the rosy picture. It's very challenging, and we are thirsty for funds, we're thirsty for weapons, but to any trench you go, to any position, they all say we can do more. We can have more drones. We can have more this. And also what is important, that the drones are not flying without the people. It takes the team to go there, to risk their life. My morning started from the news from the brigade I know, where they said, we lost the team which was doing the logistic, and people died. That's something I learned at 7 a.m. So, and they were bringing something, and the Russian drone killed them. So it's a sad reality. So I want to really explain, what it takes to have its battle, and what is the imminent need for come to this future.
Так, дякую вам. Насправді, війна майбутнього, вона вже йде сьогодні. І для того, щоб чітко розуміти, як буде виглядати війна майбутнього, необхідно, аби всі підрозділи Збройних сил в повному обсязі опанували ті засоби, які вже є сьогодні в передових підрозділах безпілотних систем. Що стосується безпосередньо війни майбутнього, також основним елементом є адаптивне створення протидії на будь-які дії противника. Тобто, пояснюю, що маю на увазі. Це колега говорив про те, що коли відсилка до того, що говорив колега, про те, що якщо з'явиться система така боротьби проти дронів, що, можливо, дрони не знадобляться. Те саме говорили, коли появився Mavic, появився РЕП на системи, які його дусять. Появилися, відповідно, підсилювачі. І цей постійний перехід, він йде постійно. Все змінюється кожні 2-3 місяці. Змінюються підходи, змінюються частоти, на яких виконують завдання і так далі. Війну майбутнього, війну технологій переможе той, хто буде більш адаптивно підходити до різких змін. Хто буде одразу будувати протидію на будь-яку дію противника. Для того, аби це було в підрозділах Збройних сил України, та й взагалі в цілому в силах оборони, у нас всі сили оборони виконують бойові завдання, зокрема і на безпілотних системах, необхідно аби було в тому числі грошове забезпечення децентралізованим способом військових підрозділів, військових частин, які виконують бойові завдання безпосередньо на лінії бойового зіткнення. Оскільки від них залежить, вони шукають, оскільки від їх дій залежить життя солдатів, і вони вперше шукають систему протидії на будь-яку дію противника, шукають цю технічну спроможність для того, як протидіяти противнику, як перемогти конкретно в конкретному місці, в конкретний час конкретним противником. Тому війна майбутнього буде, що стосується загального поля бою війни майбутнього, станом на сьогодні всі технології для того, аби противник не міг просуватися, не міг пересуватися в своєму глибокому відносно тилу, не міг застосовувати або частково більш обмежено застосовував свої безпілотні системи, знищувався на підходах до підрозділів Сил оборони або на своїх логістичних маршрутах. Всі ці технології станом на сьогодні вже є. Їх треба застосовувати більш якісно, шукати різні варіанти, системи і забезпечувати підрозділи Сил оборони всім необхідним. Не тільки засобами безпосередньо, бо оскільки сам Мавік без антен і решти засобів не зможе літати. Так само FPV не може виконувати завдання без ретрансляторів і так далі, і так далі. Тому, коли підрозділи Сил оборони в цілому будуть забезпечені необхідними засобами, командири підрозділів всіх рівнів будуть навчені і будуть мати можливість шукати протидію на будь-яку дію противника, тоді настане та сама війна майбутнього, в якій в Україні є всі шанси перемогти. Дякую.
And then there were some reactions to the discussion. Oleksandr.
And I still want Oleksandr to have the reaction, also to answer the Andrius question, but also do this reality check. We had a chance to talk to you in March 2024 before the Danish model as a prospect. It worked. You know, some money were coming to Ukraine. It was not very clear. But where we are, you know, is it, we know it's not enough, but what are technical, legit, what are also the obstacles for the European partners maybe to invest, to work together, what can be done? And I still want to ask this. When we start to talk also to the people in the front line, you know, and often, especially when I'm writing for the American media, American editors ask, you know, about lack of the American weapon. I ask sometimes, what is American here? And people sometimes say, actually in this kind of position, not much, but they also say that a lot of components are Chinese. You know, that a lot of things we are dependent on China, how we deal with that. I still, unfortunately, in the very end, want to bring this thing, yeah.
Natalie, before we speak about Chinese components, I would get back to, as you say, a reality check and how we change the balance. It's easy to speak what else we can do to those foreigners on the panel. They are the strongest ones. Let's be frank. Sven started production in Ukraine long before drones became the part of the strategy of European Union. Andrius Kubilius, Christian Freuding, Sanna Marin spent more days in Kyiv than Yegor Firsov, one of our drone commanders. I usually got used to see him on the video from the front line. Last 3 days I spent in London, Warsaw, and Kyiv. I've been speaking to defense industry, military, and political leadership. And you know what? Everyone was discussing the Polish issue with Russian drones. And you know what? Everyone was asking what would be the appropriate answer on that incursion. And you know what? Everyone agreed that NATO got a sufficient legal position to give a proper answer. So if political leaders and industry leaders like those at the panel now would be running all European countries, this walls would be showing not the fallen heroes of Ukraine, but the Kremlin on fire, live, now. I'm asking your support and gratitude to political leaders who run those countries that stand with us and those industries that do most with us. Thank you. It would be never enough to say thanks.
Thank you, Sasha.
The Chinese components issue is the easiest one. Those of you who have seen our drone production probably have seen our components production. We produced over 2 million FPV drones last year. For any producer, it's much easier to start production of engines, propellers, antennas, and the rest in this scale, rather than still imported from outside. Although a regular drone producer will still have several components coming from outside, but he will definitely tell you, if I get no antenna from China or from Turkey, I will get it from Ukraine. Yes, it would be slightly more expensive. Yes, it would be less quality at this point, but they will scale up and make it better in months, not years. So the answer is quite easy. We'll make it.
And thanks, Sasha. I would add one point. I mean, you asked what is hampering us, what's rational, and you listen now for a long time what we are saying. And what's rational why other companies from Europe, from US are not coming here? Because at the end, it's still the will. The logic is so clear. You have to be close to your customer. You have to understand what's going on. So the rational and the logic is so easy to do. But talking and doing, that's our problem. And that's the biggest problem we are having on the economic side, on the political side, and also on the military side. Because if we have the discussion on the future of warfare and where unmanned systems can have an impact on armed forces at this time in Europe, there is no discussion about it that we have to do more in the rational and the logical way, but we're still not doing it. And the same counts also for Germany and for many other countries. I mean, the Brits talking about 20-40-40, how they act. Sorry, how they act. So that's our biggest problem, that we have to follow our rationals, our logic, and we have to act like this. And the same, I would say, it's going on the political manners, and when we're talking about how Poland got attacked, so to say, so we cannot talk at this moment then about what will happen and how we have to be prepared in 2 years or 3 years. The logic and rationale is clear. Poland got drones from Belarus, from Russia, into our European territory. Now we have to act.
We still have a couple of minutes, and if there is one question we can... I was told that person is first. Sorry.
Thank you very much. I'm Dan Jakub from Diligent Capital. I'm an investor in Ukraine, investing in Ukrainian companies. Something amazing happened in Europe with, I think at this point, 4 companies that did not exist or were not very prominent 5 years ago are now valued at more than €1 billion valuation, involved specifically in drone and defense production. So my question really is to Oleksandr, maybe to Andrius. Do you know why are we not pursuing or not letting Ukrainian drone companies to become those €1 billion companies? And the question is, why are we limiting their profit margins, at 25%, where those competitors in Europe, I can tell you 100%, they're earning double, triple that margin, and that's why they're becoming leaders on the global arena. Why not kind of create this environment, high margin environment for Ukrainian companies to become global leaders and not just European companies?
If you don't mind, I'll start. We don't fight for the profit now. We fight for the life. Once we will give enough to the front line, I'm sure that we will get our companies outside of the country. You know that we started the program, we call it We Build with Ukraine. That's the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, started this program. And I'm sure that over 10 unicorns will come out of Ukrainian defense industry with over 100 companies valued $100+ million will come from Ukraine. That's a strategic industry for us. And that's something that we would be happy to share back to all the free world countries that stand with us. Thank you.
Andrius?
Well, that perhaps was more question about Ukrainian, industry development. So that's what depends on Ukraine. But I can tell you that really what we have seen during last years, how Ukrainian defense industry was developing itself. Back in 2022, production capacity was 1 billion euros. This year is 35 billion, or even more maybe. That was from spring, 35 times increase. We're dreaming about, ramp up of production in Europe, so not 35 times. We're looking how to increase, 30% or 50%. So Ukrainians really here are doing great. I absolutely agree with those who are calling that, Ukraine is becoming and will be next arsenal of democracy, using that, famous terminology from Second World War by President Roosevelt. And definitely, I can foresee, such a success of Ukrainian defense industry looking into the future. First of all, because on the European continent, we are ready to invest a lot of money. I can tell you, what are the numbers. Well, I said before that I am afraid of this psychological, change if the peace will come, that European governments will start to say, well, we don't want to invest anymore in defense. But if the pledges will be implemented, what were you giving during NATO summit? 3.5%, in 2035. So I am, my rough calculation prediction is that starting from 2028, with the next so-called MFF, till 2035, member states will start to spend around of 3%. Let's imagine this whole period, 3%. What does it mean, 3%? Per year, it's 600 billion euros. 7 years, it will be 4.2 trillion euros for defense. Not all money will go into, into production. Part of the money is for salaries to soldiers and pensions. But nevertheless, trillions will come into defense industry. And that is where Ukrainians will have really very strong platform to develop themselves as a very successful economy with very innovative approach towards defense industry. And that is what we need to be ready and not to envy to Ukrainians. And, to answer a very simple question, but I'm always asking myself, but loudly.
Andrius?
Yeah, I am finishing. Yeah. When we are talking about Ukrainian integration towards EU, for whom that is more important? For Ukraine or for EU? I'm answering that for EU.
So we proceeding, thank you so much, to the next conversation without the break. But very, very briefly, I really want to end up with Commander Krutkov. You heard everybody. You're returning to the battlefield, the next days. Your guys and girls, all serving, would ask, what you've heard? There were a lot of these important people speaking about something. What are the news? So where we are, what will you tell them?
Maybe just before, one short comment from Freuding.
Yes, thank you very much.
He tried many times.
At least several times. We discussed so often the question, when are we ready, and so on. I just want to say, also in my capacity as incoming Chief of the German Army, if the fight occurs tonight, we are ready to fight tonight. And we will try to win and succeed. Full stop.
That's very helpful for the final comment.
Дякую за слово. Я скажу, що, коли спитає хтось підлеглого з Москви, скажу, що точно, що світу не байдуже до нашої біди. Ми не одні, але, скажу чесно, хотілося б, щоб нам допомагали більше. Дякую.
Дякую. I would ask the panelists to stay on the stage for the next conversation. This is a choreography, and I'm giving my place to the best-selling author and the host of CNN, Fareed Zakaria, who will have the conversation with Eric Schmidt. So please, Fareed, the floor is yours.